All right, we just went live this morning on Facebook, and we are here on YouTube as well. I've been a lot this weekend, obviously with Easter and everything going on. So first of all, let me say first of all, I hope you had a great Easter. Probably one of the most unique Easters any of us will ever experience in our lives. But it was great. We enjoyed spending that time with our family, having the Easter online. I was able to either hand out or deliver 160 bags of Easter bag treats. We got all the bags that we had out. We gave out about half of them during our Easter drive-through, about 80 of them. And then I put it out there on the Wilsonville Facebook page for people to come and let us know if they wanted one, and we got it out to them during yesterday afternoon. So it was a great way to try to be a blessing to people. That was great. But I am trying to hone in 5 minutes with Pastor a little bit better than I have in the past. And so I want to jump right into it this morning, whether we have anybody watching live or they watch later on. Um, I was thinking as I was reading Psalm 18, and we're going to look at verses 4 through 19 this morning, about how amazing it is now that all this is going on. So many different businesses are offering like these really great deals. Like I know in Wilsonville today, Monday is Perfect Pizza's buy one get one free pizza. A couple weeks ago, our family took advantage of Subway's buy 1 foot long get another one free, and for us, me buy like two of those and feed our family. And so it's funny to watch companies try to kind of jockey for position on some of these things and try to get out the best deals and get people coming back. Usually these things happen during like President's Day or Memorial Day or Labor Day. Then it seems like if they don't get enough business, if they don't get the business they're looking for on that day, the best thing is they say, "Oh, this deal's rolling over into the next day, or we're gonna extend this deal. We've never done this before. We're gonna extend this deal for another week." You say, "Pastor, what does this have to do with Psalm 18?" I want to share some with you this morning. A deal, I guess we call it a deal that's been extended. I'm going to, and it'll make sense to you here in just a minute. I'm going to read verses 4 through 19. I talked many weeks ago, I think when we first started this, about how much of the book of Psalm is very prophetic. And now you got to remember, some of that means prophetic from David's time, not quite from my perspective yet. So I want to read verses 4 through 19, and I want you to tell me. I want you to put your thinking cap on for just a moment and think about, what does this sound like? What is this? What could David possibly be describing here? And I'm going to read beginning in verse 4. It says, "The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrow of hell compassed me about. The snares of death prevented me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him even into his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet. He rode upon a cherub and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. And the brightness that was before him, his thick cloud passed, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice. Hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot out lightning and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. He sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity. But the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. Now, when you go back and you read Psalm 18 verses 4 through 19. I ask you again, what does that sound like? Does that sound familiar to you at all? Or are there bits and pieces of that sound like something you heard before? I encourage you to go back and read it for yourself. But when we read that, there's a very clear parallel between what David just wrote and the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I didn't plan this out this way. It just happened to be where we landed this morning. But I want you to read through verses 4 through 6. Um, it has this very clear picture. It says, "The sorrow of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid." The floods of ungodly men. It's like the deep waves that just kept hitting me one after another. The sorrows of death were compassing me. They were closing in on me. When you read verses 7 through 8, it talks about darkness falling in, that rocks were rent and graves burst open. I mean, verses 9 through 15 says that God came down and he brought judgment. And again, when you read these things, there's this clear parallel between the happenings of what we read here and the happenings of the things that lead up to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. But I want you to hear verses 16 through 19 this morning. It says, "And he sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy." You know what the strong enemy was? The strong enemy was death. The strong enemy was the grave. "And from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth into a large place. He delivered me." And here's why he delivered him. Why? Because he delighted in me. Can I tell you something? Jesus rose from the grave. He was delivered from the grave 3 days later. Why? Because he was God's delight. He had fulfilled everything that God desired to have fulfilled. He fulfilled the law. He was perfect. He was sinless. He was the perfect example. And again, you may just be tuning in just a moment ago, but I was talking about how funny it is, how some of these companies are trying to keep businesses going, are extending a deal. And they're extending it for another week or another 2 weeks. And as I was reading this passage, I wanted to share this truth with you, that Easter and all the ramifications of Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the hope, the truth, the power that comes along with that, that doesn't have to stay in yesterday. That doesn't have to stay in just Easter Sunday, in just Resurrection Sunday, where we celebrate it. That can be celebrated every single day. God has extended that deal. God has extended that celebration of Easter. And when I read Psalm 18, verses 4 through 19, and again, I want you to do the same thing. Read it and reread it, and you'll see in that passage the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And for me, it was a reminder this morning that the truths of the resurrection don't have to stay in Easter. It doesn't have to be locked in that one day. It's not the only day we get to celebrate the truth that we serve a risen Savior. And if he defeated sin, the death, and the grave, then whatever you face this morning, and whatever you face throughout this day, and whatever you face throughout the rest of the week, there is hope in Jesus Christ. There is power in him, and I hope that encourages your heart today as it did mine. And I hope you guys have a great week. Tune back in tonight. We do thoughts on the family, praying for many of you, and look forward. I was great seeing many of you face to face yesterday as well, and hopefully we get to do it again sometime soon. And so I hope you again enjoy this Monday morning, and have a good rest of the day. We'll talk to you later.